Hey, it's Ken from the Parkhill Auction Gallery and Resellers Network here with you once again. I'm here at the warehouse to talk with you a little bit today about auction calling and how to bid call. So if you're a reseller or you're in the antiques business or in the estate liquidation business, calling your own auctions might be something that you've considered. Depending on what type of auction you're calling may have a lot to do with the style of calling. Like for instance, if you're selling hogs or tobacco, you might have a chant that might be more of a bit of a ramble. The reason why hog callers and tobacco callers are calling so fast and running the words together is because their audience is well accustomed to their style and they understand the keywords and they want to move along really, really fast. So in my business, in the estate liquidating business, I typically tend to have an audience that's primarily the general public, maybe a mix of some nights 50-50 with resellers and dealers. Those folks, they want me to call in a clear and concise manner. They want to be able to hear the numbers and they want to know right where they're at with the bid. And in some other styles of calling, where it moves quicker, it's a lot harder for them to follow. So I've chosen a style of auction calling that is sort of a combination of the both, which is slowing down my speed, clear, concise numbers, but also a little bit of a chant with some filler words, and it seems to work well with my audience. So one thing you have to ask yourself is whether you're a fast talker or a slow talker. If you're a slow talker, you may tend to need more filler words. You may tend to need to maybe talk a little quicker than you're ordinarily accustomed to, maybe talk a little faster than your comfort range. Maybe you're a fast talker. I tend to be a fast talker, but if I talk too fast, then I tend to start to stutter, and that's not going to work either. So you really have to find the speed that you're comfortable with your chant and your calling. A lot of auctioneers tend to use filler words. Filler words are the numbers that you squeeze in between your bid numbers, and that'll sometimes help you with helping your chant to flow a little better. It will also help you kind of stall sometimes to get your head together and put your math. If you've trained yourself it's in your muscle memory to use filler words, then you can use your left-right brain to kind of buy yourself a little bit of time so you can think through the process of where you're at. Because I know that after I've called a 300, 400, 500 lot auction and I've done it for 3 hours friggin' straight, my mind is mashed potatoes. So filler words are a good way to sort of help get you through that. Filler words that I use, my favorite ones are ones like bid or and now. Those are words I use, like for example, I might say something like I'm going through a product, I'm selling it, and I'm at $20 and I'm going to 25 and then 30. So I'll be like, bid now 20 and 25, now 30 and 35, bid 40. Those filler words are what sort of help me to move through the merchandise a little quicker and help it flow. One of the things that you're gonna need to learn really quick is how to do math in your head and do increments. So increments are figuring out where you're at and where you're going in your calling so that you can get the most amount of money. It's always a fine line between being fair and reasonable with your buyers and also getting the most amount of money for your consigners. So if you're going to call an auction, of course, you should have some sort of a system down pat in regards to what you're doing for your bid increments. Now, if I'm doing a higher end auction, I might be working in hundreds or thousands, whereas if I'm doing a lower end auction, I'm doing a box lot auction, I'm dealing in dollars and fives and tens and God knows what, but lower increments. So you have to make an adjustment based on the value of the merchandise you're selling. So now let's say we have something that's worth a little bit more money. Say we're selling something that's worth around $50. Maybe you might start that off and say something like this. You might say, and I'm selling this plant stand, should bring about $50, $60. And who started off at 10? $10 I have bid now 12 and a half, and 15 now 17 and a half, bid now 20. $20 I have bid now 25, and 30 in the back, now 35, now bid now 40. 40 I have now 5, 40 I have now 5, any advance, sold in the back. $40 to bid number 87. So as you can see, I'm not hog calling, I'm not selling tobacco, I'm not rambling off 1,000 miles an hour, and anybody can call an auction with that real simple system. Once you get better at it, you can start to have your chant flow, you can start to use more filler words, and you can start to get your lips going as quick as your brain will work, and you can start to sell with a little bit more rhythm and style, and develop your own sort of system for calling an auction. So let's say we're selling something that's going to bring a little bit more money, maybe $50. Our hammer price expectation would be around $50 or $60. So I would start it off somewhere around 10 or 15, I'd say. And next item up for bid is this wonderful antique Majolica vase. And who started off at $10? $10 where? $10, I have bid now 15 and 20, bid now 30 and 40 and 50. I can jump to 10s, or I can stay in 5s, meaning I can go, I have now 20 and 5 and 30 and 5 and 40 and 5. I can do it that way. Or if the bid is stalling and I have 20 in the front, bid now 25, and I don't get my 25 bid, I have 20 in the front, bid now 25, 20 in the front, bid now 25. You, sir, 22 and a half. 22 and a half to you. Yes, I have 22 and a half, bid now 25. Back to the $20 bid, maybe he'll pay more for it, and 25. So see what I did? I split the bid. This is something I do all the time. I don't see too many other auctioneers do this, but I like it. I use it all the time. So if I'm calling and I know I'm at the end of my rope with getting all the money out of this one bidder and no one else will go in the increment that I want, if it's a $50 increment, I'm selling something for $500, and I've got 500 in the front bid now, 50, 500 in the front bid now, 550, and I'm not getting a bid. I can try this. I've got 500. I have 500 in the front bid now, 550. I've got 500 bid now, 550. 5 1/4 to you, sir? Yes, 5 1/4 I have now. Back to the $500 bid. 550 to you, sir. Bids at 550. Sometimes I can squeeze that extra 50, or that extra, whatever the increment is, I can double it up. Whereas some auctioneers would just end it rather than try to split the bid. I tend to use that technique and it works for me. Like I said, this is something that you're going to have to develop. It's unique for every auctioneer and every person calling an auction. So some of the things you can do when you're bid calling an auction is you can use some words that sort of shorten your chant a little bit, like the word NAF. Well, NAF isn't a real word, but NAF, N-A-F, when you say it fast and you pronounce that, it sounds like and a half. So when you say NAF, you're shortening up and a half. So in the example, like if I was doing a $10 bid and I wasn't going to go to 15 because it just wasn't worth that kind of money, I could use NAF. So I could say something like, $10 bid now, 12 in NAF. It sounds kind of funny when you just say it just that way, but when you run it together in a chant, it doesn't sound funny at all. It sounds like you're just flowing. Something like $10 bid, 12 and a half, $15 bid, 17 and a half, 20 bid now, 22 and a half. See, NAF, and a half, NAF, and a half. Some people like to use that. Let's say we're going to sell something that's in the higher value range. Let's say we're going to have a target of a hammer price somewhere around $300-400. Well, in that case, we're going to use 25s, we're going to use 50s, maybe even $100 increments. And that might look something like this. Next item up for bid, we're going to sell this scooter. And who started off at $100? $100 in the front, I have bid now 125 and 150 now, 175 bid now 200. 200 bid now 250. $200 bid now 250. Any advance? 225 to you, sir. 225 I have bid now 250 back to you. 250 any advance? Sold. $250 to buyer number 63. So something like that would be where I did split the bid. I was able to squeeze a little bit more money out of it. Started off at $25 increments. If I were going to go higher, I could have went to 50. It could have been, I have 200 now 250, 200 now 250, and 300 now 350. Or I can split the bid. That, like I said, that's a useful tool for me, and I use that. Then, of course, if you're getting into selling cars or higher end thing, or horses or some higher end thing, you might be up into the hundreds and $500 bids, or you could do the $250 splits, or $1,000 at a whack. It really depends. You just have to. The idea is to write down the increments you'd like to work with as a target, and then make your adjustments. So just practice your increments, get them down so that they flow and they're clean and they're concise. Okay, so here's another little technique that I use that I find kind of useful. And what that technique is that in the beginning, when I do my opening comments and I explain to the audience what the rules of the auction are, I ask them. They don't always listen, but sometimes they do. And I ask them, I say, and if you're here at the auction today, listen, my eyesight isn't as good as it used to be, so when you're bidding, if you can hold your bid card nice and high up in the air, and let's not do this where every single time you want to bid, you're just giving me because I may not catch your bid. But if you hold it nice and high up in the air, I can see your bid and I'll make sure I recognize you. And you say, well, why is that so important? Well, of course, so you can see the card. But this is how I use that. So when you've got two bidders that are bidding against each other and they're both holding up their card high in the air, guess what? I can maybe squeeze a little bit extra money out of them by doing it like this. Let's just say we've got two audience members right now and they're both holding their cards up nice and high like I told them to do, right? So now what I can do, because they've listened to me and they both have their cards holding high up in the air, right? It's gonna take them time to put their hand down. So sometimes you can squeeze a little bit more money. Sometimes you wanna be ethical and you wanna be fair, but sometimes you can tack them with a price and they don't even realize that they just did an extra bid. So it looks something like this. 40 now, 45 and 50 and 55 and 60. By the time they put their hand down, you already tagged them an extra $5 or $10. You gotta be careful with that one, but like I said, sometimes when you're moving and you're flowing and things are moving fast, you can squeeze a little bit extra money out. And most of the time they won't get too aggravated as long as you do it like I said, in good fun and fair, and you're not doing it as they're taking their hand down. The key is to get them when their hand is still up high. So you've got some auctioneers that'll actually bounce bids off the back wall. They've only got one bidder in the front row holding his card up like he was asked to do, and there's got no other bidders, and they're sitting there tagging him and tagging the back wall with nobody else competing. That is not right. It is not legal. It's unethical. I don't recommend it. And if you do it, you're going to lose the confidence of your audience. But all it takes is two bidders at an auction. So if you've got two people with their hands up high, make sure you grab those bids before they change their mind. So another venue that you could be doing would be charity auctions. I'm not going to get all involved in talking about charity auctions today and how to call them and that sort of thing, because charity auctions really are their own animal. They're a whole different set of skills that you need. But for the most part, what I'm telling you is that at a charity auction, you definitely don't want to get into a chant or a style of calling an auction, bid calling, that people can't understand. When you're calling a charity auction, you need to be clear and concise. A sense of humor and or a good personality really benefit at a charity auction. I don't know how many times I've gone to a charity auction and they've got a volunteer calling the auction that has no experience and no personality. And I can tell you, there was a lot of money and a lot of donation left on the table. Something else you can do at a charity auction, or any auction really, is that if you have access to liquor, you can provide adult beverages to your audience, which oftentimes, as long as it doesn't end up in a fist fight out in the parking lot, tends to benefit you, because people tend to be a little looser with their wallet. I find that having a sense of humor at any auction is a great benefit. Interacting with your auction, getting people involved, making them feel comfortable, joking around with them, those are all tools that I like to use. You know, little jokes like, if I'm trying to sell a box full of books and I can't get an opening bid on them, I'll say jokes something like, what's the matter? Nobody here knows how to read? You know, little things like that. gets them going, gets them involved in the auction. Something else you need to consider is feeding your auction. Say, we're not a restaurant. Well, maybe not, but when you come to our auctions, we typically tend to have a really inexpensive little meal for them that they can grab a plate of or a bowl of, just so they've got something to eat. A lot of these people are leaving work and not having a chance to come home to eat before they come here. So we want them to be comfortable, and if they're hungry, they're gonna leave. One of the things that we've done in the past is we offer them hot dogs out of a hot dog machine, or we'll offer them a $5 plate of pasta with sauce and maybe a couple of meatballs. Got a little old retired lady, she does it for me. I let her keep whatever money that she makes from the concession, and I give her a couple bucks to bring it in and set it up. When your audience is hungry, they're gonna go home. They're gonna leave. They're not gonna bid. Your job as an auctioneer is to keep those asses in those seats. Some of the auctions in the past that we've done in appreciation for our buyers, we've given them a free meal. If it's a little small specialty auction or something where you don't have 150 bid cards out, then maybe you pick up half dozen pizzas or hot dogs or something, just as a courtesy. Without getting too involved in the whole auction process part of this business, just keep in mind as well, you're going to need some good runners or some good ringmen. Another couple of terms that you might hear in the auction business would be runner or ringman. They're kind of the same thing. I look at it a little differently. I typically tend to call ringmen the people that are more involved with working up the crowd and getting the buyers to bid more often. In my case, I'm using more of a runner. And what a runner is, it's the same job. They're still looking for bids in the audience to help me, but they're bringing the merchandise up to me so I can put it in front of the auction. If we've got large pieces, they may sell in place and we may ask people to turn their heads. I try to set my auctions up in a horseshoe so the audience is in the middle. I don't want to have everything behind me, but small boxes, trays, things that can be carried, the runners will go, they'll bring them up, we'll sell them, they'll either put them back, or if it's things like jewelry, we may give them to the buyer, especially if they're a trusted buyer they've bought from us before. So to review that, a ringman, I look at a ringman more as a runner that might work for, like, say, Mecum Auctions. They're selling automobiles. They're going out to the crowds and they're standing with the crowd and they're helping them to bid and they're yelling, bid, over here, yo. Whereas in our auctions, I can typically see where my bids are coming from because I don't have 10,000 people in the audience. I've got 100 bid cards out, maybe 125, and I can usually see those bidders. So in that case, my runners are more here to help me bring the product up so that all the audience can see it. It's easier to see it up in the front than it is to try to sell it in place where it may be on a corner or on a shelf. But if it were up in a corner or on a shelf and it were heavy and couldn't be moved, then it would be the job of the runner to hold his hand up and let everybody know what's being sold. Some auctioneers use cameras. They put the item on a table and they have a camera pointing down and they put the item up on a big screen so that everybody can see that item. That's entirely up to you if you decide to use something like that type of system. So if these videos are helpful to you, but you're looking for more of a one-on-one type of interaction where you need some help with starting off or scaling your existing auction business, feel free to reach out to me or my team through one of the links below. We're available for consultations. Touch real briefly today on scribing and clerking. There's a bunch of different ways to do that. You can do that using software, which is the most accurate and easiest to run reports, but there's also a learning curve. There's a number of different platforms you can use, like AuctionFlex or other software programs you can use. But again, you've got a learning curve with that, so you've got to learn that software and be proficient with it before you actually execute an auction using that software. And it's the end of an auction can be really stressful. You've got a lot of people want to check out at the same time, and you need to have a system that's efficient and effective. Otherwise, you're going to frustrate your buyers. Scribing tickets are just these tear-off little tickets that you shove into what we call a sorter, and it puts all the buyer's merchandise together. So when they come up to check out, you can go in and say, okay, bidder number 63, let's look in the slot for 63. Oh, look, here's all the tickets for 63. And you have someone that's good with an adding machine, and they just, and off they go. You can also have a second scriber that's actually writing out the invoices if you want to do it that way. That's the simplest, easiest way. What I wanted to say to you was this. It's really, really important as the auctioneer, as the front man or woman, to understand that you are in charge of your audience. If you have a strong but outgoing personality and you can manage the buyers that are in your chairs, you will not only get through your auction quickly and efficiently, but your buyers and your staff will all have a good time. I can remember when I first started off my career, I used to go to other people's auctions and see their style of selling. And we used to have this one local auctioneer, and every auction I used to go to, he'd get frustrated with his audience and he'd start smashing stuff. And I, to this day, remember the lessons that we'll learn from how not to run an auction. He'd say things like, and who'll give me $25 for this commemorative plate? $25 where? Should be worth that. Hell, I'll smash it, crash, before I let this go out the door for any less. You know, he would pull things like that, and before you know, he would have people filtering out of the building, one at a time. People are coming to auctions to have fun. It's a source of entertainment as well as a place to get good deals and or buy products to be resold. But their experience coming to your auction should be a positive one. I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for spending some time with me here at the auction house talking about bid calling and the auction business in general. If you found value in the content that I'm providing, please consider becoming a subscriber to the channel. You can connect with us using the links in the description below, and or you can track us down on our Facebook page, Resellers Network. Hey, until next time, enjoy your life, enjoy your work. We'll talk again real soon.